Welcome to the Connected Leadership Podcast, broadcast live on LinkedIn, Facebook and on YouTube. I'm Andy Lapata. My guest today, as at the beginning of every month, we're recording this at the end of March for broadcast on the podcast at the beginning of April. My guest is Luca Senoretti. Luca is an Italian leadership strategist, and we get together every month to just chew the fat over various topics to do with professional relationships and networks. Before I introduce Luca and he joins the conversation and I introduce our topic for the day, I have to share the exciting news with you. Exciting for me anyway. You may not be bothered in the slightest. I hope you are. But Just Ask, my fifth book, has become my first book to be published as an audiobook. So it's been available for a little while as an audiobook on certain channels, but it's now on Audible and Amazon and available around the world on those platforms. So if you prefer to listen rather than read your books, and as a podcast listener that may well be the case, then head over to Amazon or Audible or a preferred platform. It should be hopefully on all of them. Search for Just Ask by Andy Lapata and you can get a much longer spell of listening, not to me, but to someone who is reading my book for your pleasure. I invested my time in doing these podcasts instead of recording the book. So that's my news. I would like to introduce Luca Signoretti. So Luca, welcome back to the Connected Leadership Podcast.
Hello. It's great to be here, Andy, as usual.
Great to have you. And for everyone who's joining us live, please pop something into the comments on YouTube, Facebook or LinkedIn. Hopefully those will show on my screen if all our technology is working. If you've got any questions on our topic for today that you want to ask Luca or I, if you have anything that you would like to add to the conversation, we would love to hear from you. In addition to that, just to add in that on the first Monday of the month on the Connected Leadership Podcast, Luca and I have our discussion. On the first Thursday of the month, I host a session called Ask Andy, and that's for me to answer any of your questions. I will be recording the forthcoming episode shortly. I do have some questions in and some topics to discuss, but if you've got some questions that are off topic for today but you'd like me to address in the Ask Andy session, pop those into the chat as well. Simon George, good morning, my friend. I hope that you are well. It's good to see you joining us on LinkedIn today. And Simon, Simon will have a great interest in our topics today because Simon's business is running networking events. So we're talking about where to network and where to meet people. Simon runs a series of events called Business Buzz that take place all around the UK. And obviously he's had to adapt his model over the last year as people can't meet in person. And sort of that leads me on to just sort of framing the topic for today. And good morning to Jeremy Nicholas, who says good morning to both of us, also on LinkedIn, and to Richard Balsam. So we're building an audience. So good morning to everyone. Thanks for joining us. Please do throw out your questions for us. So the topic is where do we meet people? And I think that there's different areas to look at here. I think we start with how do you meet people during a pandemic? This is where we're at now. For many countries, in the UK, we're still in lockdown. We're accelerating with the vaccine and hoping to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But we're still a little way away, I think, from formal events. Luca, France, where you're based, and Italy, where you're from, it's not so bright at the moment, I'm afraid.
Not a better situation at all. No, not at all.
Very difficult situation. So that I think we're looking at the rest of this year for many of us. We're still going to be looking at virtual. So we'll start with looking at that. As part of that, I suggest we talk about Clubhouse. And I know Jeremy, who's listening, is a big Clubhouse advocate with a regular engagement on there. and the social audio space generally. And then we can talk about the return of conferences and events and how you pick those. So that's how I'll frame our discussion. Luca, I have talked for far too long. It's time for you to chat a little bit. So how have you adapted to our new world over the last year?
Well, let's say that the idea now is that I'm leveraging much more my network, my current one, to reach out for new people. So what I tend to do now more than ever, of course, limit unfortunately the opportunity to meet by chance people during in-person networking event, but instead working a little bit more with my current. And every one of us, of course, has his or her network already in place, and that's the right moment to say, can I eventually, exploit a little bit, ask my network if they know somebody in this area or another area. So I'm writing a book right now on leadership. So I need to meet new people involved in leadership in different situations. So I continue to ask my let's say my closest friends and connection if they know somebody. And so I'm doing a lot of, as all of us, I'm doing a lot of video calls, very interesting people, very interesting discussion. And this gave us also kind of opportunity to, how can I say, to make it more frequent. So from one video call to another, we can set the next one. That is not as necessarily something you do when you meet somebody, by accident or by chance somewhere. So there's also some positive aspect about that if the conversation, then you have a conversation that is one-to-one, there is no noise, you can focus on the other person's face, and then you have a minimum time, I don't know, half an hour minimum. So sometimes it's even better to have this kind of one-to-one conversation than having in the middle of a crowd in a very noisy place. So that's what I'm acting in terms of myself knowing new people in this period. What is your experience, Andy, anyway? Because of course we all are doing networking without any kind of pause, I suppose.
Well, I think the approach that you talk about, and I, if I remember rightly, I think you touched on this in our last conversation last month as well. Is my preferred approach anyway. I had got to the point after over 20 years in this space where my network is at a level, and I'm not looking to grow it en masse. I'm looking for very targeted growth of the right people in the network. So I would normally look to grow the network by introduction more than by random connection anyway. Not that I'm closed or averse to random connection, but it would be my preferred approach. And actually, I've always pretty much felt like that. Even when I ran networking groups, I found it strange when people came to look to get the help they needed from people who at the stage of coming into the event were complete strangers and they hadn't asked their existing network for help and support. And I recognise it's very comfortable for you or I to talk about this approach because we have strong networks already. So it's very easy for us to turn around and say, well, ask people for introductions. There will be people who are watching this or listening to this who are starting afresh, whether they're moving, for example, out of a corporate job into their own business. If they, I have clients that I mentor who have been moved into new territories within the same role. So they're going into a territory where there's been no handover and there are no relationships and they can't meet people in person, or a range of other reasons. People don't feel that they have the network. So I think we have to think about, from their perspective, how do someone in that position, how do you tailor your advice to meet new people through introduction to people who would turn around and say to you, but I don't know anyone?
Sure. Well, first of all, we have to make a little bit of effort anyway to think a little bit more in depth about who we know right now. So the assessment of our network I think it's a useful thing to do. Even if we have few people, let's think about them. Let's really, take a time to write down everyone we know. We'll always discover, and I do this with people, friends and executives, and we always find out find out something, some new things, some people that they never thought about. They could be helpful. Having said that, you're right. I mean, of course, a lot of people don't have the right network. That's even really the point. They might have a network that is from the past job, and they want to move in a new area or in a new geographically also maybe they don't have this kind of support already. So what I suggest to do, of course, everything starts from the objective. Okay, so networking comes after you have clear idea about who you want to get in touch with. So the really first step, the time zero is not who I know or who I want to get in touch with, is what I want to do, because from there, of course, we can understand who we need, who could help us to get there. And so from that point on, we can start, thinking about how to get in touch. So let's say that you want to get in a specific situation. So I don't know, you want to get in touch with somebody in finance. Maybe let's take the example close to my experience here in Monaco. Okay, the certain financial service business is quite big, it's quite developed, and of course in London is of course much better than that. But let's say let's take this example, and you want to get in touch, for example, with somebody working in private banking. You don't have anyone there. Okay, so how you do that? Well, there are different things. First of all, of course, and again, why not ask around? Do you know anyone in a private banking? You never know, because even if your friend is in consumer goods or I don't know, works for in a restaurant, they might know somebody in this field. So asking, as again, we get back to your book every time, but it's so important. You have to ask. You have to dare to ask what you're looking for. And if you really don't find anyone, okay, let's move to the next step. So what kind of, first of all, of course, the tool for me, the main one is a LinkedIn, of course. This is such a basic notion. I don't even have to mention it. But the important point is how we go with, in getting in contact with somebody we don't know. And the most important thing, and I really spend a lot of time explaining that, is that we have to give a justification of this contact. So I don't know you, Andy, but when I receive a request for contact with zero explanation, unless it's so obvious, because I don't know, they are from my university or something like that, I usually basically decline, because I think that if this person didn't take the time, 2 minutes, to explain why he's getting in touch with me, okay, it means that she's not very serious about that. So explaining why you get in touch is the minimum effort you should do, and it should be, of course, something that is related to your interest, not necessarily because you're looking for a job. Of course, this mention should never be there. Okay. You always say, I just would like to connect you, have to add you to my network, because I'm very much interested in the field you work in, and that full point. Okay, you don't go much more than just asking to connect. A lot of people just either they don't say anything, or unfortunately they just go and say, oh, I would like to ask you this, and this is because I'm looking for. No. I don't think you have to go step by step. The first step is just, please, and we're so happy to count you among my contact. Please accept my contact. Then we move on from there. So then Andy, tell me your experience about that.
Well, I want to pick up on a couple of things that you said. First of all, we've got a few people watching and listening on LinkedIn Live, and please do share your experiences. How are you guys meeting new people in the current world where you can't go out and engage with people at events? So please share those in the comments. I noticed that the latest person to join and say good morning is Anik Deviart. And I received a connection request from someone yesterday because Anik had recommended me. So thank you very much for that, Anik. But it goes to the point that you're saying, Luca, that person reached out to me and framed it. They gave reasons. They didn't just say Anik recommended you. They also said why. And that was important. A couple of things on the last thing that you said in terms of personalizing LinkedIn connection requests. I absolutely agree. You should be personalizing LinkedIn connection requests. And you said not to say it's because I'm looking for work or whatever it might be, but it's actually about where your focus is. So I talk about the eye test. And a good example is someone who reached out to me, and when I asked why they wanted to connect, the response contained 16 I's and no U's. Mm-hmm. In other words, it was, I want to connect because I do this and I do that and I'm interested in this and I'm interested in that. And there was not even the slightest indication that she'd even looked at my profile. So it's not about what you want to achieve. It's about reading the other person's profile, giving them a reason to engage with you. I'm going to carry on that point in a moment, but we've got a couple of comments. Will Kintish, who teaches networking, is a master of it, teaches LinkedIn as well, has said, talk more, type less. Will, expand for me. Type a bit more on that one. I want to know more about where you're going with that. Anique's got a big smile on her face at knowing that connection's taken place. And Avi Liran has said, when people try to connect with me without a note, this is the reply that they get. And he's put a video link there that will be available on this video on LinkedIn. So here's what happens for me. So I don't delete them. Here's where I maybe differ slightly. And I do recognize that the ideal is people personalize a request. And when I teach LinkedIn, when I talk to my clients about LinkedIn in an environment like this, I would always encourage you to personalize your connection request. It is a courtesy. And not only is it a courtesy, it is more likely to allow you to cut through the noise out there. Having said that, not everyone knows how to do it. If you connect with someone on the desktop site from their profile, LinkedIn prompts you. In any environment, it doesn't. And if you're not aware of that, it's too late. So if Luca, if you pop up as someone you might know on Will's profile and he clicks connect, he won't get the chance to personalize it. If someone goes to your profile on their mobile app and presses connect, it will send you the standard connection request. They won't get the chance to personalize it. They have to know to click on more personalized invitation. So I think we have to give people a little bit of slack for that. And actually, I delivered a workshop a couple of days ago, and that came from a LinkedIn connection request that was just a standard blank one. And when I responded and when I replied, then they came back to me and explained the background. So Avi has replied with a little bit more information. I also give them a challenge. I invite you to a delightful challenge to solve a meaningful riddle. Who was Dr. Chana? If you're interested in delighting other people, they might enjoy the surprise. So thank you for sharing that, Avi. Here's what I do. I keep it probably a bit more simple. I write back to them and I will say, thank you very much for your invitation to connect. This is how I use LinkedIn. Predominantly, it's a referral tool for me. Therefore, I prefer to predominantly connect with people who I've got an established relationship with. However, I don't like to ignore anyone. So please tell me why you would like to connect or what led you to connect. And then I can judge based on their response. But if you cut through that, so the person who mentioned Anique and gave me the reason didn't get that response. I just accepted and went into conversation because I had context and it made sense. So Will has done what I asked and he's typed. So he said the best way to communicate is to talk. Review your existing network and pick up the phone or suggest a Zoom meeting rather than just emailing, which is going to what you were saying as well, Luca. WhatsApping them, rather than just emailing, WhatsApping them, etc. I rather like WhatsApp video. Very personal, even intimate. A great way to reconnect. So yeah, we do have, let's talk about these tools. We have voice notes, we have WhatsApp video. It's not just in WhatsApp that you've got this, you've got it in LinkedIn. And I keep forgetting to use it. But most people probably aren't aware that you can leave voice notes and video in LinkedIn. So we can engage with each other in a more human way, even when we're distant from each other. Is that something that you've engaged with, Luca?
Well, I definitely, I mean, we all miss this face-to-face, in-person thing. So, of course, the video is something that get as close as possible. And I definitely see. Oh, so the good thing is that anyway, this pandemic has forced us to use WhatsApp video, but also, of course, Zoom and anything like that. So this is a kind of, I think it's a very positive evolution in that, especially when we network as probably you and I and many other people work across nations, and so it's very difficult sometimes to stay in touch in person. We basically acquire new means to stay in touch with this all these video calls. So I think this is a very good evolution. Having said that, I think we have to also try to avoid this kind of being always on video and video and video, because it takes a lot of time. So just to make a very clear example, if we ask somebody for a video call, as much. I mean, we think it's going to take a half an hour. That's a kind of, I can say, significant request to another person. Okay, he has to, be in the right mood, in the right moment, especially if they work from home. So it could be a little bit kind of asking too much. So that's why, unfortunately, probably when we are not doing this in person, we have to go a little bit more progressively. Okay, so we start connecting on LinkedIn or whatever, having maybe a couple of email exchange, and then we can go to the video call. So not immediately ask a video call. I think it's a right way to do things, because I mean it's quite a big request. So maybe we have to go a little bit slower, but as we always mention, and this is important, relationship needs not time, needs interaction. So every time we interact with somebody, an interaction is an email, is a call, of course, it's a video call, and possibly a coffee or a dinner, whatever it is. That's what really makes the relationship evolve. It's not the time. Okay, if we don't do nothing for 6 months, the relationship is gonna die. It's not just because the time has passed that the relationship is strong. Not at all. So multiply the interaction is what we all have to do with the means we have now, and means we have now, of course, are not the in-person thing. That's what
I think you raised an important point there, and this idea that you jump straight to a video call, I think we can get carried away with this. And you talked about that might be a big challenge for people. I find this quite a lot, that people reach out and they'll say, you've had no interaction previously, and they'll say, well, should we jump on a call? Well, with all the best will in the world, if you're busy, then it doesn't take many half-hour calls to suddenly just screw up your week. Time-wise.
Absolutely.
And I think that there are some people who, not deliberately, but inadvertently, are disrespecting other people's time by just thinking, well, they can just jump on a call. And I've actually got quite brutal. So you need to build the relationship first. A little bit of engagement, and often in networking, the analogy of dating is used, and the difference between, where people walk into a networking event and start pitching is the equivalent of going up to an attractive man or woman at a bar and saying, should we go home? Before you buy them a drink and have a conversation, and maybe let's jump on a call is similar. Exchange a few emails, find that rapport first, engage with their posts on social media, and then build from there, and show a little bit more respect for their time, because I've got brutal now, and I am just saying, no, I can't, because I literally can't, particularly with the podcast recordings and everything else, the time's not in the diary.
This is a very good point about how you can add value to the other person. We always say the most important things when you build a relationship with somebody, you want to to build something with, is to provide value. This is the main concept of let's say the right way of building a relationship, giving value first. So in this moment, and with the necessity of every one of us to have this kind of public visibility, and so we have posts, we have videos, we have whatever we have, and the fact that people really like comment your post, and or I don't know, reshare your post, this is a real value. So if I notice that some an unknown never met person is doing this for me, you can be sure I'm gonna get in touch with him or her and say thank you. And I'm really gonna be very much keen to keep on with this kind of a relationship, because he or she has already proved that she wants to be somehow serious about that. So this is a very good way for inexperienced people, or people that they don't have a large network, they don't have a maybe large working experience, to add value to maybe a more senior person. Okay, the senior person is looking, if it's on LinkedIn or posting, probably of course is looking for comment, support, resharing, whatever it is. This is a great way to give value.
Agreed. I've got a couple of comments from Will Kintish here. I'm gonna address your comments in reverse order, because your most recent comment relates to what I just said, and your previous comment relates to what I want to move on to. So the latest comment goes to what I was saying about not having video calls straight away. Will has said, I think that when you have an early video call, you can assess very quickly if this is a person worth building a relationship with. Andy, you say it's stealing your time, but every relationship starts somewhere. I wouldn't necessarily use the term stealing your time. I think it's about managing your time, Will, and absolutely, in an ideal world, I agree with your comments, where you have infinite time, where you have calls booked throughout the week, and a lot of maybe client delivery, maybe preparation, sales development, whatever it might be. It's another chunk. You have to make the choice that's right for you. My point is that you have to respect that other people's choice might not be the same as yours. So just saying straight away, let's have a video call, might not always work for everybody, and it might not be the best way to jump in with. Build a bit of rapport first, and then suggest the call. And then where people get to the point where people are looking forward to a call with you. I think otherwise, Will, you teach networking and networking skills. I don't think you would suggest to anyone that they walk up to someone, shake hands and say, let's meet for a coffee next week. Let's have a conversation first, find out if there's a rapport, something in common, and there's a reason to meet for coffee next week. And I think it really comes down to that. Will says life is about priorities. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you choose yours.
Yeah.
So Will's previous comment, and it takes me to where I want to go on to, and I mentioned this earlier. Will is on Clubhouse and is very active on Clubhouse. I mentioned Jeremy is also active on Clubhouse. I've put my toes in the water. I'm a bit of a Clubhouse skeptic for various reasons. Luca can't get on Clubhouse because he's not an iPhone user. But this goes beyond Clubhouse now, because we've now got Twitter Spaces, Instagram are coming into play. All of them are coming into play with audio social, or social audio. So Will said, I think Clubhouse has exploded because people do like chatting and share verbally. Also, as we're all under house arrest, and by the way, Will isn't actually on house arrested, he's referring to lockdown. We are lonely, another reason for Clubhouse success. Hope Italy isn't under house arrest too. Luke is actually based in Monaco, but I don't think it's much better there.
Both
to be
side,
honest.
Monaco indeed is not in lockdown. It's the only.
That's good.
Of course, Monaco is special, but always, but France and Italy are both in lockdown this moment. So we really cannot do a lot.
So Before I sort of address the point about social audio and Clubhouse, Avi has said, I agree, give value, read well, give a like, a comment, share great posts of the person you want to connect with. I think there's a real opportunity to engage with people, as people are doing with this podcast recording, which, you know, we both really appreciate. And then Will has asked, Luca, will you invite me to visit? Hasn't invited me to yet. Hasn't invited me to yet.
if you can get here, yes, for sure. If you find a flight, because there are no flights for the moment.
He'll be fined £5,000 if he does, but maybe at a later stage. So let's talk about the social audio side of things.
Yeah.
We've talked about Clubhouse, but as I mentioned, Twitter, Instagram, everyone's getting in on the act. I think there are pros and cons, and I know that, I don't know if Jeremy is still on the call. I know Will and Jem are both actively engaged with Clubhouse, as many others in my network have. I've dipped my toe in the water. The advantages that I see is you can have deep conversations on Clubhouse. You can be in a room. You know, I would normally go into a room for an hour. I know of people that have been in rooms for 4 to 6 hours and gone really deep with their conversations. And you get to know people better. You have much more engaging explorations than you might do in a chat-based thread on a social network. And I think that there is a really great... a great way to engage from that perspective. Avi has to go, but thank you very much for joining us from Singapore, Avi. So I think there are those benefits, and I know people that are really enjoying that. And as Will also said, where people are lonely and locked down and craving that company, and I live alone, I get that. It provides that conversation that we need. Part of my challenge with social audio, and it goes back to the previous conversation, and it goes back to something I just said, is the time involved, the time investment. When I teach LinkedIn, I share a 10-minute challenge, which my clients really love because it makes it easy for them. Go onto LinkedIn, 10 minutes a day, scroll through your newsfeed, like, comment, and share. So you can engage for 10 minutes a day, and you can ramp up your engagement and your relationships quickly and easily. Don't think you can do that on Clubhouse. You have to invest a lot more time. And, you know, Will has just commented, I think you have to be very choosy on Clubhouse. There's a lot of crazy rubbish chats of which I have no interest, and that's absolutely true. But even when you find a really engaging conversation, you know, that scares me when I hear people are in rooms for 6 hours. And when I'm in a room for an hour, I'm thinking, what's the opportunity cost of this? What else could I be achieving with that hour? Maybe it's replacing networking events, which we were investing 1 or 2 hours in. And you could argue, and I probably would, the conversations in Clubhouse are deeper and more meaningful perhaps than the elevator pitch exchanges at a networking event. So I'm on the fence still. I think it could go either way. I think there are pros and cons. Luca, I know this is hard for you to comment on from experience because you're one of those strange Android users.
But that's choice of a life choice, you know.
Absolutely.
That's
but what's your gut feeling about audio only engagement, where you go into a room with a group of people, some of whom you know, some of whom you are new to you, and just talking without seeing them?
Well, I think this somehow is a surrogate of something, because my experience is all of course that we have to use every means we have. So thinking that one relationship, or let's call it building your network through one media or one mean, is stupid, because of course you cannot only see people in person, or you cannot only build a relationship via email or via whatever kind of social media. It's going to be a mix of all this. Okay, so I'm perfectly fine with having one piece of the process done in one of this situation. Okay, and I think it's really important to understand that at the end, what is important is the fact that we build the interaction. So whatever is the opportunity, whatever is the mean, we're going to do this is absolutely fine. I don't think that I never had, I don't know, your experience. I never built a very strong relationship only by email or by video call. I think that at a certain point we have to meet each other. And in this moment, it's not possible. So we're gonna seed a relationship in this moment, and hopefully we're gonna have an opportunity to meet each other, and because it's important to read. I mean, that's obvious, but the body language is so important, and our feelings, we know from so many research that our brain reads so many details that we don't even recognize, and give us this feeling this person is right for us or is not right, etc., etc. So taking out all this body language, this kind of reading the message that somehow accelerate the your assessment of the other person, and based on your assessment you decide if you invest or not our precious time. Because I totally agree, at the end of the day, what is the most precious things we have is time, and so that's why it's so important to spending time with the right kind of people. I'm not saying that it's a matter of I like them or not. It's a matter that if there is the relationship is building the right way, so mutually beneficial people that can help each other. If they're just fun, perfect, no problem, we are just friends. That's another kind of networking. We are not talking here about building new new friendship. Of course, it's part of the networking activity. It's perfectly fine. But if we want to, if we want to change a job, we cannot go around and ask people, hey, do you know anybody in this field? Just by chance. So if you're, I probably mentioned already, but if you're looking for a doctor, you don't go to the supermarket, okay? You go to the hospital, and that's the point, okay? So we can discuss for hours about being in the right rooms, but that's so vital. The right room could be a virtual room, of course, okay? But it must be somehow related with your objective. Again, networking for the sake of networking, it's a big waste of time, and this is probably the main reason why people stop doing networking, because they say, oh, I don't see any result. I cannot meet the people I'm looking for. Of course, again, you're just going randomly. You have to have a little bit of more strategic approach and say, based on what I want, or I want to get in this kind of job, well, I have to show up where these people show up, okay? The kind of people I want to get in touch. That's the minimum you can do to optimize your time, the usage of your time.
We had this conversation about, I would say, 18 months ago, just before the pandemic, Luca, because we talked about the difference between a partnership mindset or strategic mindset and a relationship mindset when it comes to building relationships. And the fact that you need what we term the blended mindset. You need to go out, you need to be open to meeting people where there's no obvious reason to be connected based around your business or career objectives at the moment, but you click. You have things in common. You have interests in common. Commonality is the key, and you have rapport. But you also need the strategic element. And the strategic element is, what do I want to achieve, and how can other people help me? Do I know the right people to help me, and if I don't, how am I going to plug those gaps? And that's where you're very deliberate and targeted in terms of where you invest your time when it comes to events or social media or whatever it might be. Will who teaches networking skills has said waste on time of networking equals they don't know how to do it properly.
Absolutely.
And I think we'd both agree with you, Will. One thing that I've always said, Susan Rowan wrote the book How to Work a Room. And I think that a lot of people invest time in networking skills, which is what Will excels in, but don't necessarily focus on networking strategy. And what I've always said is it doesn't really help if you know how to work a room, but you don't know why you're in there in the first place. And the two go side by side, and they complement each other, and that's the important thing.
Yeah, I think it's even more important right now, Andy, because especially if we are talking about people looking for a job or any kind of change, you certainly you might do networking by chance, or going around, let's say, in a physical place. Okay, so you get to an event and you start just going around and ask people what they do, or just chatting with people. But if you're thinking about going on a social media, for example, and let's take LinkedIn, you have to have a kind of target, because otherwise, what do? You just send message to the world and say, "Hey, world, I'm here. It might work, but at least, I mean, you have to be a little bit more targeted than the physical world."
I agree, and this is what I've built my business on. This idea over the last however many years, I think since 2007 when I left the business networking organisation I was running. Is that idea that you have to have a clear objective. There's such a thing as networking strategy as well as networking skills. So on that note, let's move on to wrap up the discussion and focus on a wonderful time, the unicorn time that we can all imagine when we're able to see each other in person again. Luca, you said that we miss the body language, we miss the real way of reading other people and knowing what they're thinking and understanding their mood and really being able to build rapport by meeting in person. So I think this all brings us around nicely to say, with everything in mind, in a normal environment where we have conferences, we have events, whatever there might be, whatever opportunities there are, how do you determine which ones you go to and how you select where you build your network? You've got that strategy that we're talking about. How do you then use that to look at this massive choice we have? I always say, well, you can network at breakfast, lunch and dinner, and in between you can get on your computer and network elsewhere. So yeah. How do you filter the noise and decide where to invest your time meeting new people?
Yes, but that's really, I don't want to repeat myself, but that's the logic. I mean, we really start from our objective. So let's take again the example of, let's say you want to meet someone in the financial service because you're looking for a job there. And the good idea is always to identify 5 or 6 people that are somehow the profile. You want to get in touch with, I don't know, the chief financial officer of this the company in that sectors. Okay, and you start asking yourself, these 5 people or this kind of people, where they show up. Okay, so you start thinking about, they probably show up during the association events. Okay. And then there is kind of industry event that is different. So association of CFO, industry of a manufacturing company event. Maybe they're going to speak at university, they're going to speak at any kind of event or other event, or they're going to be interviewed, whatever it is. Okay. So knowing a little bit who you want to get in touch and making a little bit of research. I mean, now really Google them, and I will start with 5, 6 really real people. I can say, let's see where they show up. And that point, how you get into this event, because most of the people are out of this event. Okay, they are not part of the financial service industry already because they want to get into. Okay, so there are 2 ways to do this. That's why I recommend, and I personally experience in my life. The first way is obvious. You ask your friends if they have any chance to get into there. You might have a friend that is already working in somehow in the financial service. Okay, they eventually can get you into this kind of event. Okay, it's a little less obvious, but sometimes it might happen. The other way that I really suggest to do is to, this is a trick I used personally in the past, is to, offer your help. Okay, so to the organization of this event. Okay, so you offer a little bit of your time. You offer, I don't know, if you have an expertise in part of the business, you can say, okay, I'm going to take care of this, or I'm going to give you 5 hours, 10 hours of my time, whatever it is. Especially if you're looking for a job, you have a little bit of time. Okay, that's the point. And then once you are in the organization, of course, you have won the right to be there when the event happens. But even more interesting, if you can get this any kind of let's say job as, I don't know, somebody who gets in touch with the speaker of this event, so basically people at top level in this industry, it's gonna be even more important. You can have some kind of I don't know, you can welcome them where they come. That's the kind of or you can be definitely be the behind the scenes, so where they are not attacked by hundreds of thousands of people who is trying to get his or her attention, and you are maybe in a more relaxed kind of situation, so you can talk to them. So basically you find a better situation to start a conversation and a relationship. So this is our tricks that especially for people looking for a job are kind of feasible. Okay, so offer your volunteering yourself to your organization. They always look for people that, of course, they are not paid, so that's a very interesting point for them. And there's always something to do. Once you are there, you have access to a very interesting situation where all the room is full of your targets. What better than that? I mean, there is nothing better than that. You have concentration of targets in one place instead of going around and meet one by one.
The only thing I would add to that, I think having that very strategic focus in terms of where the right people are going to be is absolutely key. When you go into that room, focus on building relationships with them. Don't be looking for the win immediately. If it comes, that's fantastic, and always be alert to the opportunity. And if they're interested, but focus on them, focus on rapport, focus on finding common interests, focus on taking the conversation outside the room so you can build a relationship. I have a simple philosophy that I would much rather, all things being equal, you refer me 5 times than you buy from me once. Because all things being equal, that's 5 times more valuable to me. But also, if you trust me enough to refer me, if you understand what I'm looking for well enough to do it effectively, if you need what I offer, you're going to come to me anyway. So it's just that mindset, move from a sales to a relationship mindset. We started off by you telling us that to meet new people in the current environment, you ask people in your network. And we've come full circle by saying that if you're trying to find the right events, you ask people in your network. So I think the core message here is whether you have got a big, full network full of the right people already and you just want to increase and add quality to that, or whether you're starting from scratch, you still have people you've got family and friends who may well have connections. Turn around and ask people, and that makes a huge difference. Luca, thank you very much. I think we could keep going for ages. Will has posted lots more comments. Will, I'm sorry I couldn't feature all of them, but really appreciate your engagement, and Avi's as well, and everyone else who said hello and has engaged in the conversation. Thank you very much. As I mentioned at the beginning, for those of you who didn't catch that, this is a recording for the first Monday of the month, first Monday of April. On the Thursday, I will be answering your questions in Ask Andy. I have some questions that I plan to talk about or talk to for that episode, but I haven't recorded it yet. So if you have any questions, pop them in the comments on Facebook or LinkedIn, or send them across to me. And I will be happy to address those as well. Thank you, Anik and Will, for your messages just now. Thank you, everyone, for your engagement. Luca will be back again in a month. If you have a topic you would like us to discuss, let me know that as well. Luca has some interesting ideas as well for some ideas coming up. That is the Connected Leadership Podcast. Thank you for joining us. And for those of you watching on LinkedIn, YouTube and Facebook, keep your eyes open next week. I've got a couple of cracking interviews coming up that I'm very excited about. So they'll be posted up in advance. Keep your eyes open because you won't want to miss them. But for now, thank you for joining me on the Connected Leadership Podcast.